So I'm really on the
USS Enterprise, yes.
What's the start date then?
2291.6.
Coming up, an accident while investigating a time portal sends Ensign Boimler and Mariner Beckett to the 23rd century and into a face-to-face encounter with the crew of the Enterprise.
Nurse Chapel, hi. I need to talk to you about Spock. He's, acting different.
So, will Mariner and Boimler's slips of the tongue and never-ending hijinks change the course of Starfleet history?
Spock, what's going on with Portal?
Without Heronium, we cannot activate it.
And there is no other source of Heronium anywhere in the quadrant.
None.
Or will Pike and the Enterprise crew figure out a way to send these unconventional officers back to the future before it's too late?
What? The body, the face, the ears. I was thoroughly unprepared for how hot young Spock was going to be.
It is one hell of a ride as the animated and real worlds comically collide.
Coming up on the Strange New Worlds Lower Decks crossover edition of Energize.
Energize.
This week, Star Trek Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds embark on an unprecedented crossover episode.
Time, reality, and weird Spock behavior make for one exciting event.
Here's a warp speed recap of Season 2, Episode 7 of Strange New Worlds, Those Old Scientists.
The Cerritos has just entered the orbit of Krolmuth B, home of the Krolmuth B portal.
Oh, I gotta get a picture of this. Hey, Boimler, this way. Give me a Spock pose.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Live long and prosper.
The ancient thing is doing a thing.
Oh my God, so I'm really on the
USS Enterprise, yes.
Okay. So, what's the start date then?
2291.6.
Oh, hell yeah! I did it!
Mariner, what are you doing here?
I'm saving you?
No. We only had enough for one trip.
Oh.
Spock, what's going on with Portal?
Without Heronium, we cannot activate it.
And there is no other source of Heronium anywhere in the quadrant.
None. Can't we just cook some up?
We could attempt to synthesize Heronium ourselves. If it goes wrong, the blast could take out half the ship.
All right, Steve, they did it. They did it. We had a hint that there, last year that there would be some kind of crossover event. Right. And they dropped it, episode 7, and it was fantastic.
I have to agree. I thought for sure it was going to be a mess, and it wasn't. The second I saw the animated, just the opening of the show,
yes,
with the music by Jeff Russo, it wasn't the stuff that they had done before, the computer-generated stuff. It was a comic version of it, of the Enterprise and all the opening. And from that moment, from just the opening credits, I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yep. I mean, it was an ambitious undertaking, and I just think that the producers of Star Trek, did it right. So let's just dive right into it.
Let's go.
Ensign's log. The Cerritos has just entered the orbit of Krolmuth B, home of the Krolmuth B portal, one of my all-time favorite portals.
So we open up like we're watching Lower Decks. It's the 24th century aboard the Cerritos, which is orbiting the planet Krolmuth B, which is where Captain Pike and the crew of the Enterprise discovered a time portal. And by discovered, we mean like they haven't discovered it yet. That's what I love about this.
Well, they discovered it in the past because the Cerritos is already in the future, so this is already happened.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's like they discovered it, but they haven't discovered it yet. The Cerritos already knows about it, and that's what's so beautiful about this episode is you've got that juxtaposition. It's fantastic. But we open up with our cartoon characters: Boimler, Mariner, Rutherford, and Tindy, our favorites.
Yep, and so they've been assigned to go to this planet and basically just do a follow-up on the portal that's there that Pike and his crew discovered, 120 years before. And Mariner's not really thrilled about this assignment. She's like, "Ooh, this is boring."
Right. Because it happened over 120 years ago. But the thing about Boimler I really love, and in Lower Decks, he always has the best lines because he's always referencing some Star Trek canon that we all know.
Can you imagine what it must have been like to be with those old scientists? I mean, this is as close as we'll get to Spock or Numero Una.
Don't call her that.
He's so geeky about it, and he's wondering, gosh, what would it be like to be standing at the same spot as Uhura and experience this? And Mariner, who's kind of in charge of the mission, she's still just like, no, let's be done with it.
Yeah, she's like, whatever, nothing's happened with this portal in 120 years, just like going to see a rock, sitting there.
Oh, I gotta get a picture of this. Hey, Boimler, this way. Give me a Spock pose.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Live long and prosper.
The ancient thing is doing a thing.
So the four beam down to the planet, and Boimler's all geeky, wants to take a picture. And so as Rutherford takes a picture of Boimler standing on this dormant portal, it all of a sudden activates, and he's sucked in and thrown into the other side, into the past.
Now, I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. That's never explained. And
no.
At the beginning, I think that needs to be explained, but by the end, I think I don't care. Who cares? The whole point was just to get him to the past, and that's what they did. And
yeah, and it makes sense. We've seen these portal episodes before, where in the original series, where Dr. McCoy jumps through it, and they have to jump through it with him
because he's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these things have happened.
You guys look very realistic.
Number 1 to Enterprise, we might have a problem.
So we see real life Boimler, Jack Quaid, and here's what I love about this. He actually kind of looks like the cartoon character that they made for him. They even gave him blue hair. And he kind of drops down to the floor, and he looks up and he sees Spock and Una and La'an standing them. And he's like, oh my God, you guys look so real, so realistic. Like, wait, was he living in 2 dimensions? What's that all about?
Yeah, it was just a wink, I guess, to the audience, and then he passes out.
Yeah.
And so, and like you mentioned earlier, we go into the Stranger Worlds opening sequence that's completely animated. And I thought the one big thing that I caught was they duplicated the whole thing, but what they did was they added little things to it. So like the Cerritos has this alien form chewing on the nacelle, so did the Enterprise. And so I thought that was a nice little touch.
I just loved it so much. And I wasn't sure I was going to buy in. I wasn't sure I was going to like it. And it was just fantastic. And yeah, to see that animal, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, this is just so great. And to not take any of this really seriously, I think is a nice switch for Star Trek. We're still in canon.
We're still in canon, and this played out differently though than one would have expected. It wasn't complete hijinks, and so I think that's what's really good about it.
Oh my God! So I'm really on the
USS Enterprise. Yes.
Okay. So, what's the start date then?
2291.6.
So Boimler's in the 23rd century. He wakes up in sickbay, and Pike is there. And Benga's there, La'an's there. So he's trying to hold on to information because he knows he's in the past, but Pike assures him that he already knows that he's from the future.
Yeah, that was funny. Boimler tries to awkwardly not give away stuff, and Pike's like, come on, let's go.
It was the communicator did it. It was just it wasn't that hard to figure out. And it's not like Pike's time and the in Boimler's time are drastically different. It's not like being in the 21st century and you're talking to somebody from the 1200s,
right.
Whatever that is. And it's not that case. It's just only a 120-year difference, and they're in an advanced future, so it's not that hard to figure out. But it poses a lot of issues, though.
Yeah, they've got to lay down the law. They've got to go, look, here's some rules. Don't make any attachments. Don't tell anything from your personal experience. Don't change anything in any way that might give us a tip toward the future. Don't do anything that could irrevocably change the future.
Right, and Lon has been assigned to him as a chief of security would be, and so she gave him that riot act. But when she said that about, don't talk about, things from personal experience, she was like, he kind of picked up on the fact that, you've been through this before, which we all know she did with episode 3 with Captain, Kirk.
Yeah, Lieutenant Kirk.
Well, he was Captain Kirk in that episode because he was an alt-reality
alternate
Kirk.
Captain Kirk, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God, we have to keep track of all this stuff.
I know.
But that reality weighs heavily on Boimler, as it should. And so they go back down to the planet and, trying to retrace what happens. And, Boimler just basically says, well, this thing just, kind of just happened, like dumb luck. And then Spock makes this weird joke.
We took a hollow image with our camera, seemed to set it off, so I guess it was just dumb luck.
You just laughed?
Yes.
Yeah, it was so weird. He smiles and then he snaps back, and I'm thinking, wait a second. Is this what we got from Spock from 1 and 2 episodes ago? Or is this part of the Lower Decks? Here's what I'm starting to think. Is this the Lower Decks episode? Or is it the Strange New Worlds? I'm starting to get confused. Like, why would he smile like that? We have not seen him do that.
I thought that it was just kind of a continuation of what he's been dealing with the whole entire season. Since last season when the buffer between controlling him, between his emotional or human and Vulcan sides broke down during the Gorn episode. Then he's been dealing with it all season. That's been the theme of his. And now he's dating Nurse Chapel. And so he's exploring his human side.
Plus, he was human. Sort of weird. He was human. Yeah. And so is that part of him almost not, I don't want to say fighting back, but I want to say complementary to the Vulcan side? And if so, this is what I like about Boimler, because he keeps pointing out during the episode, that's not the Spock I know. And I like that.
Not the Spock of history.
Yeah. And I like this because it kind of reminds us this may or may not be Spock's future. We know it's fan service, dude. It's like we know who Spock really is, but this is kind of the Strange New World Spock. Which one wins?
And we can do that. We can do that because this is before Kirk's time. This is the early days of Spock and Starfleet, and you can assume that he's making that adjustment. He's still exploring himself, and they've basically set that up from the very beginning of Strange New Worlds, and I appreciate that. It gives us some room to play, and I don't mind it. I think it's good. He's still Vulcan, but he's still, we're going to just explore his human side more, and he can make a decision later on.
It reminds me of Data Lore in Picard, final season, when he becomes kind of both. He's Data when he needs to be, he's Lore when he needs to be, and that fluid, forgive the term, creature actually works. It's human.
Yep.
No response to hail, sir.
We're sure that's an Orion ship.
Oh, that's totally an Orion ship. Classic Scout. I built a model of one in a bottle.
And so, Pike radios down to the away team. I say radio, but I don't know the proper word for it. But he radios down to the away team and tells...
He communicates. He
communicates
transmits
with the away team and tells them that an incoming ship is coming in. We find out that ship is what we think is an Orion pirate ship.
Now, we remember earlier on when Tindy was like, not everybody was pirates. Not all Orions were pirates. And Boimler just jumps out. And here's what okay, I don't know if you did this, but I closed my eyes every time Boimler spoke because I wanted to see if it sounded like the Boimler from Lower Decks. And it did. Of course.
Oh, 100%. And I think that the animators actually engineered the characters to actually look like.
That was incredible. That was incredible.
Yeah. And so I think that was a smart move on their part from the very beginning, instead of making characters that were drastically different from the way they looked. So I thought
he had
that
blue
worked.
hair. He had blue hair.
Yeah, and the facial features, fit, and I thought
so.
that was really, really cool. So, Boimler, with when they identified that this is an Orion ship, so it's like, okay, pirate ship automatically, let's load up the torpedo tubes, and Boimler intervenes and says, hey, that could be a science vessel, and they're looking at him like, really, but. But he begrudgingly, or reluctantly talks to them, and but they take the portal anyway and run off like pirates.
I shouldn't have listened to the ensign. That's why we lost the portal. It's just rare that we have someone on the ship who's such a
Fan? Of you, at least. He seems completely terrified of me.
Off they go, like Pike, exactly. But it's not over there, because I feel like both Pike and Boimler are cut from the same cloth. Like, let's give these guys a chance. He made a mistake, obviously Boimler did. But just even being there on the Enterprise is affecting Pike in such an interesting way. And we talked about this before. What kind of ship is the Enterprise right now? Is it Pike's ship? Because there are so many influences on him that really steer him in different directions. He's not the Kirk that we saw in TOS. He's really more of a like, oh, really? Okay, I'll turn my head this way and we'll try this. He's kind of like a chef, which is what he is on Strange New Worlds. He's, throwing a few things into the mix to see how it tastes. I think that's who he is.
Yeah, and I like it because it puts him in a different lane from previous captains, and I think that's the challenge that every
that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted to be.
Exactly. So I think it works well because he's just kind of by feel. I think that Pike is a by feel kind of guy, and I can respect that. And so he has this great conversation with Una, privately about the fact that Boimler's presence aboard Enterprise is affecting him in how he sees his future. He said, well, maybe that my future isn't so bad.
Right, because
Since he's
Boimler's
so
all
revered.
about like, oh my God, you're Pike. We all know about you. And
exactly.
We don't know why.
I wonder how that would feel.
Right, if he knows he's going to have his face burned off, does Boimler know him because he's known for having his face burned off, or is he known for something different? And it's a great way to interject the big question mark. Will this actually happen to him? That's what I love about this series, is that's the whole thing we're waiting for. What happens to Pike?
Yep. And I enjoy him dealing with his inevitable reality. And so, as Boimler's on the ship, the great thing about it, they preserved the comedy that comes from Boimler. They preserve the comedy and hijinks that comes from Mariner and the two of them together. And so Boimler, of course, is spilling the beans on everything, like Pike's birthday, and Ortega and Nurse Chapel, like, huh? Boimler then has this conversation with Chapel in the turbo lift, and this I thought was a really good moment.
Nurse Chapel? Nurse Chapel, hi. I need to talk to you about Spock.
Spock? What about him?
Well, he's acting different.
What it did was it allowed us to understand what the future could be, however, what's going on right now. And
exactly.
We're all confused.
We're all confused. I mean, what's going on with Spock? I mean, that's the elephant in the room. And so, but he presses, Nurse Chapel's like, well, this isn't the Spock of history. But it's in that moment that Nurse Chapel has her epiphany or aha moment that, oh my God, if Spock is like this in the future, well then what does that mean for our relationship? Because if he's going straight hard-laced again, that means that their time must be short.
And we know that because that's canon. And
exactly.
So we see for the first time her realizing it may not be what she wants it to be. I mean, look, you hook up with a Vulcan and you're a human, you're never going to be satisfied anyway. She should know this. Her mother knows this.
And you can see their eyes kind of welled up in coming to that realization. And I thought that was a really good moment.
As of now, there is no way to track the Orions.
I know how to track the Orions.
Didn't we talk about that?
Yes.
So back on the bridge, Spock and Pike and company are trying to figure out how to track down this Orion ship. And Boimler comes on the bridge like, listen, I oh, I could do that. But I tell you what, just don't look. And it was so funny. It was like, can he do that?
That's so great. I kept staring at Jack Quaid, who I love so much. And I mean, I'm sure you felt this way too. He's got Dennis Quaid's mouth and Meg Ryan's eyes. And that's a weird thing to keep looking at.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He is his father's son. That is true.
Oh, my God, for sure. He's such a Quaid.
Yep.
But there he is, imparting age-old wisdom, saying, listen, this great-great-great-grandmother is on that Orion ship, and we don't want to erase her from history. She is the progenitor of everything that happens. There's a dilemma.
Oh, very much so. But before they tracked down the ship, he made the whole bridge crew turn around while he, made adaptations to Spock's science panel, science station rather. And I thought that was hilarious, having them all lined up facing the opposite direction.
You're right.
But yeah,
That's
you're
so
right.
Funny.
Yeah, but it was a really good, mind-bending twist to really think about the implications of what happened when someone comes from the past. I mean, anything you do could alter everything, even the most minute thing. Just merely bumping into somebody in the hallway, keeping them from doing something they were supposed to do, the timing. It's a mind screw. I mean, we should never do time travel. It would, irrevocably damage everything. And with that information that Boimler shared with Pike, then he goes to the diplomacy route and says, we should trade something. It's a sign of respect. That's what Boimler tells Pike. And so they have this grain that they were sending to a needy planet, and they traded it for the portal.
And it works.
Yeah.
However,
and I was just like, okay.
That was a little weird, but I get it, because you would think the portal is not, in my opinion, tradable. It's power, and when you have power, you don't cede power. But I was surprised they did that, but it worked for the story, because they get down on the planet and there's Boimler, and they're like, we've got just enough, whatever it was, midichlorians or whatever.
Heronium.
Yeah, thank you.
You went Star Wars on it with that BS.
I know for sure.
Were rough.
Sorry.
Yeah, just take all the mystique out of it.
I really apologize for that. That was so brutal. But it's like, let's send you back, and they activate it, and who comes through?
Mariner.
Oh, hell yeah! I did it!
Mariner, what are you doing here?
I'm saving you?
No. We only had enough for one trip.
Oh.
And what I love about the two of them is that they look like their characters. And
yeah, Tawny Newsome looks like Mariner. Well, I mean, they designed it about for her.
She's so great. And if any of you have not seen the first season of Space Force with Steve Carell and Tawny Newsome, you have to watch it, because she's on there. I think it's Apple TV. I don't know. But she's phenomenal. So she's a really fun actress, and she's been incredible on Lower Decks. We've covered them for 2 or 3 seasons. And
yeah, their comedic timing just completely works. Yeah, and I really appreciated Lower Decks, and will appreciate it when it comes back in September. But
yes, September 7th. And by the way, think about this, Anthony. This is the first time the two of them have been together on an actual set as people.
Right.
They started this show during COVID. They were in their own homes doing this. It's the first time they've actually met.
Yep. And then they made music together, and it really worked. And I bought it, and it made it tangible. And so that's what's making it work up to this point. And so the comedy that the two of them add just makes it made it fun and giddy, because we're living through how we would feel if we bumped into Pike and crew, and we came from the past. I mean, came from the future to the past, and you would be fans, like when we're fans of particular celebrities that we really respect or really enjoy their performances, and you meet them in person, kind of like, oh my gosh.
Look, I'm going to keep this like 100% profesh, but I was thoroughly unprepared for how hot young Spock was going to be. What? The body, the face, the ears.
So there they are, and they're gobsmacked, and they don't know what to say.
Yep. And Mariner's crushing on Spock in the ready room, and she just kept like, I thought that was freaking hilarious. That was really good.
She's like, she kept calling him, Hot Spock or what
I can't remember, but she was crushing
either
him.
good-looking Spock or Hot Spock.
Yeah. So that was a trip, and so the problem is they don't have any more harmonium, so they can't activate the portal. So Mariner's going to work with Uhura to read the inscriptions on the portal and try to figure that out, while Boimler's going to work with Spock to synthesize harmonium.
They're two favorite people, and it becomes this weird fanboy, crazy, just oh my god, I can't believe it kind of thing. And it's so funny to watch Mariner with Uhura, because Uhura's like, hey, I'm 22. I'm just this person. I don't know what you've done yet, or what I've done, rather. And you're talking about me like I'm this huge hero. I don't get it. It's fascinating to see.
Yeah, it would be the same thing as if somebody, came from the future and said, Anthony, you're going to do all these great things, and, history's going to remember you as such and such and such and such, and that would be weird. That would be so weird to hear. As much as it was weird for me, one day I knocked on the wrong door and some lady came to the door, an older lady, and she said, you will lead people. And I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
But,
this is the Zefram Cochrane conundrum.
Yeah, it was weird. I never forgot it because, I have aspirations, and so it wasn't something that was off base for who I am. And so, I can I'm just recalling that feeling. I was like, whoa, that's weird. Okay, all right. Affirmations, let's take it. I'll take it. Let's do it.
It does not take an expert observer to recognize that my experiments in human emotion trouble you. Therefore, I must surmise that my future state, the one you are familiar with, must be one in which my emotions are minimized.
So it was a great scene between Boimler and Spock while they were trying to synthesize the harmonium and talking about Spock's emotions.
And he asked him, he's like, listen, earlier I was talking to, Chapel, and she's like, the universe needs Vulcan Spock. This is what Boimler's saying. We need you to be the logical Vulcan Spock that we know. And you can see Spock thinking like, oh, that's interesting. History's calling me.
Exactly. But Spock also makes a valid point that, surmising that he needs to stay on course, just be who he is now. Because maybe that's part of his development to become the Spock of history.
But what does that course mean? That's what's so weird about when people come back from the future. It's like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. It's like, well, do I take a right or do I take a left? Who should I be? And he's like, I'm just going to be me.
Yeah, and I think Spock is correct, because it wasn't that Boimler told him very specific details that could alter his path. He just said, we know you to be X, to be this one person. So I think the most logical thing is to stay the course, what you're currently doing, because clearly it's going to change on its own.
Makes sense.
Ever since I got here, all I've done is open my big stupid mouth and screw everything up. But if I want to be a hero, I have to fix things.
Ooh, what are we fixing?
And so the chamber, they're sitting in the room and the thing is starting to pop and it explodes. And so this kind of prompts Boimler later on to go rogue, and they get inside of a shuttle, and he and Mariner are there, and they, send a message to the Orions to, get the grain back for the portal. Because I think that at that point that Boimler's accepting that they're probably stuck there, and they'll have to just go stay out of history's way.
Right, and because they've blown it, right? They've spent all their capital. They can't get back. So La'an shows up, and she's just like, okay, guys, what's going on? And Boimler has a really good response.
Yeah, and we've seen Boimler grow, because I thought he was a little annoying in season 1. I liked him, don't get me wrong, he's funny. But we've seen over 2 seasons his growth and how he's changed.
And plus, as soon as you make him 3-dimensional, somehow he's even more real, human, mature. You can't get away with the goofy 2-dimensional stuff. Yeah.
And this episode just had a lot of really good poignant moments. And so, Boimler earlier on had told Nurse Chapel and Ortegas about, Pike's birthday, which they didn't really know about. And so they're wanting to plan a party. But there's this conversation between Boimler and Pike about, he didn't have a good relationship with his dad, and now he's about to be past the age where his dad died, and he has regrets, and he was just going to celebrate by himself.
Mr. Boimler, I heard that you've been encouraging my crew to throw me a surprise party. Please stop doing that.
You never know how many birthdays you have left. You have friends who want to celebrate you while you still can.
I thought it was an interesting insight into Pike. We don't know a lot about him. And to know that his dad died at 49 or 50, because Pike's 50 at this point, to see him be that vulnerable with this random future ensign is interesting. I love that part. It was a really good moment.
Yeah, and then Boimler says, I just wish I would have had this time with my dad, but Boimler brings it to point, well, your crew one day will have wanted to have shared this time with you in the future, which is very clear that Pike knows that, Pike knows that Boimler knows what's going to happen to him in the future.
So Boimler gets this aha moment.
Yeah, it was a great aha moment because in that conversation, Pike wonders, tells Boimler, I wonder what it would have been like to walk on the, Archer's
Enterprise. Exactly. It's like every era wonders what the past era was like, and Boimler's like, oh my God, wait a second, and he knows that each former ship, which I'm going to be honest, is a little bit of a hole because I don't think this is true, but each former ship has a bit of itself in the future ship that's named for it. I don't think that's the case with the Titan A that becomes the Enterprise G, but maybe it is. I don't know. But there's always a little bit of something from the former ship named for it. And in this case it works.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it wasn't too far-fetched because I remember in that season 1 when everybody was on shore leave and Una and La'an were doing all the things because they felt like they weren't fun people. And they just started doing whatever that list that the crew does.
That was Enterprise Bingo.
Yeah, Enterprise Bingo. And they went on to the outside the ship and went to the Scar.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, and every ship has the Scar. And people have gone out there and signed it. And so
we talked about that too.
I could see this being something, a thing.
Okay. You know what? You're right. It worked.
Listen, I may have given you the wrong impression about Boimler's poster. It's for recruitment. Yeah, you're the literal poster girl / woman for Starfleet.
You should have led with that part.
So Mariner and Boimler now are going to beam back down to the planet. It's time for them to transport back to their time. They have found the technology that's going to do that for them. And as they're going down, Mariner says to Una, listen, Boimler had this poster on his wall, but it wasn't just a poster. I mean, it was a recruiting effort, but it really was about you and about who you were, and that she's the reason that Boimler joined Ad Astra, or was it Ad Astera per Aspera, right? That wonderful saying from a few episodes ago that has resonated over hundreds of years, and suddenly Una's just like, wow. Thank you. And it's beautiful.
Yep. And she was in I don't know if we touched on it earlier, but Una was kind of creeped out at how Boimler was responding to her because they were in the corridor. It was Mariner and Boimler, and then Una walks up and he just runs away from her, you know. And that's when she first shared that he has a poster of her, and she thought that was weird. Kind of like, what, you have a poster of me? Is this some kind of like Farrah Fawcett, Janet Jackson poster you got of me in your pinup? Yep. Is that what they've done to me in the future to make me a pinup girl? And so she was a little weirded out by it. So when Mariner tells her this and Boimler confirms it, it actually puts her at ease and gives her the confirmation that she was really accepted by Starfleet.
Right. And
with her being...
And we saw this with that trial, Things like that don't happen, randomly. They happen for a reason, and it becomes lore. And I think for her to see that she has resonated throughout time and inspired people. The other thing I wanted to say was last season they gave her a couple of good episodes, This season they gave her 1. I'd like to see more of Una. I want to see even more of her story. I still feel like she's kind of been in the background. Maybe the last 3 episodes this season they'll do something with her. She deserves more.
Yep, but hey, but to your fulfilling your request, we got more Pike.
I know. I loved it. More Pike.
Yep. More Pike. It was good. Pike was present in this one.
Pike plus. That's what I say.
Well, you said Pike plus. I like that. Paramount Plus, Pike plus.
That's right. Pike plus.
We got your message about the portal.
That was a mistake. That message was sent without my authorization. I'm afraid we still need it.
So they beam down, and Spock gives Boimler the Vulcan salute, for which he's giddy. Yeah, but they get down there, and Orion's is sitting there.
Right, and they're like, okay, and they were really nice, and this is where Pike and his diplomacy skills really take effect. He's like, listen, we'll let you be the guys that discovered this. Just let our people go back. And it was a really wonderful compromise.
Yeah, but I think Boimler softened it by saying, Mariner, by saying that they're friends with Tendi, in the future, and mentioned the person that was on the ship. He's like, how did you know that was, that she was on our ship? And he was like, well, yeah, and so that softened him out. And like you said, Pike made that deal and said, hey, you can be the Discovery. And then the captain surprisingly says, that's all I've ever wanted.
That's all we ever wanted.
Validated.
Right.
Was to be validated.
They just want to be seen, Anthony. They want to be seen.
Yep. And I know it's a played thing to say these days because everybody says to be seen, but, sometimes,
it's real.
Overused terms are just what it is,
I think it is real.
Everybody wants to be seen.
I agree. Yeah. So the best part about all of this was we go back to the Cerritos, and for the rest of the episode, it's animated, including the Enterprise, which just was so great.
They seem nice.
Tendi, you were right. It turns out Orions did discover this portal.
I know, I told you. My great-grandmother discovered it.
Oh, Astria, right?
That's right, but how'd you know her name?
But yeah, they go back there, and we find out that they let Tendi know that she was right. Because at the very beginning, there was this dispute as to whether the Enterprise discovered the portal or did the Orions.
Right.
And they confirmed it with Tendi, which is part of the paradox.
Which we know that is the paradox, because Enterprise did discover it, but they gave it to the Orions so the Cerritos crew could get back.
Yep. And then we find out that Mariner, I think when, what's the first officer's name? I'm just drawing a blank at the moment, but when he shows up, he's like, that assignment, blah, 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 blah. We found out that Mariner was the one that actually asked for the mission for Boimler.
Right.
Hey, how was the mission, Mariner? Never seen you fight to get work before.
You fought to get this mission? You did it just so I'd get to go.
No, Ransom's just an idiot with a bad memory because he sleeps face down like a baby. Shut up.
Now, what would have been interesting is if Jerry O'Connell got phased over to the Enterprise, because Una is his real wife in real life.
Yeah, now that would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
Yep. So yeah, it was totally cool. And you see growth in Mariner. Mariner has changed a lot. We've talked about that, for season 2 of Lower Decks. So we've seen her grow, and I think that's good. I mean, this is not like watching 10,000 episodes of Scooby-Doo. It's the same old thing over and over again.
Right. And the damn kids, I would have gotten away with it.
Well, for you kids. Well, they didn't say damn back then, but if that were on the HBO Max, it would be like you effing kids. But
when we shouted surprise, you didn't seem very surprised.
Come on, number one, I knew. That's why I canceled my fishing trip. Someone reminded me that maybe I should celebrate with my friends.
But so, like you said, back on the Enterprise, everyone's animated, and we found out that Pike had his party anyway.
Yeah, it's so great. And they're sitting there drinking Orion ale. They're kind of feeling weird. They're like, wow, this is kind of strange. And they're meta commenting, fourth wall almost, that they feel kind of strange and two-dimensional, which
or take a
was perfect.
Like, are my eyes big? Are my eyes unusually big?
Are my eyes, exactly. But it was great. And now, look, you and I both know that in the coming weeks there will be a musical. Hang on. Don't get bitter.
Don't get bitter. Don't get bitter, Anthony. Don't get bitter.
This is Glee Enterprise, okay? Now, do we like it? I don't know. But I'll tell you this. Over this week, I went online and I looked at a lot of people are upset with the fact that it's not pure TOS canon. Here's what I'm going to say about this. Times change, viewers change, people change. Strange New Worlds is the best adaptation of Star Trek you could hope for, given the way the world is now. We all need to relax a little bit and just enjoy it. This episode was enjoyable. The musical will be enjoyable. Let's just ride with this and enjoy it.
Well, Steve, this was an amazing episode. It was everything that I could have hoped for. They just did a fantastic job, and it blended perfectly. I didn't question the vehicle for getting them through the portal, and you're dealing with two different times, so it works anyway.
Yeah,
and
I thought it was
having strong actors like Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome made it work too. It couldn't have been done with weak actors.
No, I agree, and what a bold and audacious. And by the way, we didn't even mention this. It was directed by Jonathan Frakes, who,
of course,
was the perfect person to direct it. It was just wonderful, and I loved it.
Well, that concludes this Star Trek Strange New Worlds / Lower Decks crossover event.
Crossover event of the century. Listen, if you want to check out what's going on our website, we'd love to have you there. It's www.energizepodcasts.com.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening. I'm Anthony McLemore.
I'm Steve Truitt. Live long and prosper.